Thank you, Nanzen, and also Rebecca for introducing, and also, of course, inviting me to share the Dharma with your Sangha. So it is an honor for me to come and join this peaceful and wonderful Sangha. Yeah, so today I'm going to share with everyone on the topic that were suggested on the practice of giving. So, okay, so let me share my PowerPoint. Okay. So throughout my sharing, if any one of you have any comments or questions, feel free to put it in the chat box where we will have some time after my sharing to discuss and also to share together our views and also interact with each other. So for today's topic, the practice of giving. It is a very important practice in Buddhism, and this giving sometimes we come across the Sanskrit word of dharma, and it is also one of the main practice of the Prajnaparamita in the practicing of Bodhisattva's practice. So sometimes we come across the perfection of giving, of the perfection of dharma or dharma paramita in a way. But when it comes to giving, we all know that it is the fundamental practice as a Buddhist, whether as a monastic or as a laity. It is because the Buddha shared with us the practice of giving as in a way for us to kind of understand the importance of sharing, and also to overcome the greediness that we might have in our mind. Okay, so before we actually look into giving, let me kind of talk a little bit about receiving. Giving is something that people give it to us, but for us to recognize receiving or receive anything that we're given, it is very important. It is because by recognizing receiving or being a recipient, we will cultivate a mind of appreciation and gratitude for what we receive. So if we look at our whole life, starting from the day that we are born into this world, we have been receiving the best from our parents, receiving the most care that were given around us. From young, as we grow up, we learn along the way, receiving education in many different ways, receiving all the best nurture from our parents, our grandparents, or even our relatives, friends, everyone. So throughout our whole life, we have been receiving. But sometimes, if we don't recognize the act of being a recipient, we might take for granted with what we're receiving. So as part of the main highlight of our practice in giving, I think that it is also very important for us to recognize being a recipient, so that we can give rise to the mind of appreciative and also cherish the things that we're given. Okay, so when we cherish the things that we were given, only then we can reflect upon our ability in sharing in return, and thus practicing of giving. So as part of our practice, giving, transitioning from receiving to giving, we look at the whole life of the Buddha. Before the Buddha's enlightenment, Siddhartha was like sitting under a tree. Today we call it Bodhi tree, but in India, they are also known as peepal tree. It is very common in India. But when Siddhartha was struggling with the practice of ascetic practice, where he spent 6 years taking only a grain a day, and he almost lost his life because of this practice. And eventually, he came to a stage where he realized that the importance of practicing the middle way. That is when Sujata, a lady who was going around offering a bowl of rice milk to the tree god, and Sujata come across Siddhartha, who was meditating under a tree. So at that point, Siddhartha accepted the offering by Sujata, and then he regained energy so that he kind of like cleansed himself, and then he continued on his practice. And eventually he realized full enlightenment. So with this practice of giving, without Sujata, without that bowl of rice milk, we might not have the opportunity to listen to the dharma shared, given by the Buddha. And we might not even have the opportunity to realize or to listen to the realization of the Buddha. So giving is a very important part of our practice. So when it comes to types of giving, as many of you might have known as you learn, I know that Rebecca showed me that we have a professor from UCSB to share with you on the Platform Sutra. And in that sutra, I also mentioned about the different types of giving. So what I'm going to share with everyone in this slides today is the types of giving. We all know that the main common types, there are 3 different types. Giving of wealth, we know like some of the donors or philanthropists that are willing to donate to support nonprofit organization. Like giving of wealth is whoever that has the mind to share whatever that they have to support with those organizations that align with one's objective in one's practice. So the first one is pretty common, like giving of wealth. And the second type is giving of fearlessness. Talking about fearlessness, it is something that for us to reflect upon since young or throughout the whole life when we encounter different people, meeting with different situations in life. But sometimes like we might not be aware of the importance of giving fearlessness. Like for example, as a kid, sometimes like we play around playing hide and seek or peekaboo, and sometimes like we out of ignorance, like like as a kid, like we just play around and then we try to scare others by hiding behind a door or in a corner. But as we grow up, we reflect upon the words that we say. And sometimes the words that we say, if we are not being mindful, we are actually giving fear towards others. Like for example, as a supervisor or a person managing a place as a manager, sometimes if we are not mindful of our words, sometimes we might say things like, oh, if you don't perform well, you might lose your job, for example. So even though like in the real world, this is survival, but if we look at it from the Buddhist perspective, in some ways, it is like giving fear towards others. Instead of like saying that if you don't perform well, you might lose your job, we can change the structure of how we relay the same message, but in another way. Like for example, instead of like giving words of fearness, we try to give words of encouragement, trying to understand what is the difficulties that our subordinates, our colleagues is facing. Is it because of something that is too much for a person to handle? Is it because of the difficulties in managing with the subject that one is handling? So as a supervisor, as the boss in the organization, instead of like giving fairness, we try to give words of encouragement. Like we try to say that, oh, so-and-so, is there anything that I can do to help? Based on your performance, seems to be struggling a little bit. Please let me know if there's anything that I can do to guide you or to help you in some way, in one way or in another. So this is just one example of giving fearlessness. And we all know that one of the bodhisattva that we all know is the bodhisattvas of great compassion, also known as Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva or Guanyin Bodhisattva. That's always there in our mind, always there appearing in different people, different audiences, being there to assist us, give us fearlessness, give us encouragement along the way in this path of practice. So the third type is what everyone is doing here. Like we gather weekly, we share the Dharma, we share our experience in reflecting on the Dharma, the teachings of the Buddha. So when we share what we learn, what we share, what we have discovered in our practice, this is also one main type of giving. Just like the Buddha himself, after realizing enlightenment, whatever that the Buddha shared with us is his realization on the reality of life. And then not only sharing the reality of life or the truth, the Buddha also shared with us the ways that he had tried out, the practice, the teachings. So for us to have this opportunity to be here, even like as a starting point, we thank to the Buddha for sharing the Dharma and to give us the opportunity to continue on in sharing the goodness, the wholesomeness, and hoping that with the help of Dharma, as a listener, as someone who just listen to the Dharma, listen to others' experience, it helps us grow stronger, facing with whatever that we need to face every day. Okay, so this is just three main types of giving, as per in Dhamma Sutra and also the Prajnaparamita Sutra. But of course, like there are so many different types of giving. Okay, I'm just naming a few. Okay, so and then it comes to another question that you might have is, why giving? Why should we practice giving? Okay, so giving is the basic relations between ourselves and others. Being a recipient, we receive from others. Being a person that is giving, we share whatever that we have. We share the things that we would like to share. So as in a way that we are cultivating the affinity between ourselves and others. But of course, at the beginning stage of giving, sometimes like we might come across like in the neighborhood, people like opening up the garage and doing garage sales, or even like sharing whatever that they no longer need. That is also a type of giving as a start. And this is one way for us to share. First step is to share whatever that we might not need it at this point of life. But eventually, the more that we give, the more that we share, we learn how to share the things that we benefited from. Okay, we learn to share the things that we might hold on to, okay, attach to. And through this practice of giving, we can slowly have an insight in the possibility of the greediness in our mind. Okay, and also slowly we learn how to let go by sharing the things that we care, the things that we love, the things that we long in our mind with others. Okay, so why giving? Okay, so this is a very important practice to build more affinity, good affinities, positive affinities with others, and also one way for us to slowly detach ourselves from the things that we like, and also one way for us to show our care for others. So that's the reason why the more that we practice giving, slowly we will give rise to the mind of the perfection of giving, where there's no giver, and there's no attachment to the recipient, and there's no attachment to the gift that we give. Okay, so for example, sometimes when we give something to a certain person or to an organization, like for example here in the temple, sometimes we might come across devotees giving us something for us to use, like for example a rice cooker. Okay, so we accept the gift, and then from time to time we might discover that the devotees is kind of like concerned a little bit, and like asking, oh, how do you find the rice cooker? Like, is it like useful? And then where did you put the rice cooker? So in some ways there are strings attached to the giving, but to us, we look at it as this is a start in practicing dana. It is a good start in practicing giving. And the practice of giving can actually trace all the way back, like as a start, when the Buddha first come across the first lay Buddhist. You can see the attached photo that I found on the website. Okay, so there are two merchants, Tapasu and Balika. Those are the two first lay Buddhists that offered something to the Buddha, and the Buddha shared with them the practice of giving. As a laity, being in the Sangha, when we practice the practice of giving, it is one way for us to understand the slight hint of greed that we might have. And sometimes if we give the things that we don't want, that's a slight hint of hate in ourselves or dislike in our mind. So it is true, the practice of giving, we learn to understand ourselves better. And the more that we practice, eventually we will come to the stage where we can really practice the perfection of giving, where we have gone beyond attachment and detachment of our giving. Okay. So before I continue further, I would like to take this opportunity to share with you all a very short video that I found that it is very meaningful and insightful. Okay. Okay, so in this video, we can see that this little boy, this was filmed in India. So there was a poor boy that one side of his slippers, the flip-flops, is like broken, wear and tear. And then when he was like feeling sad about the pair of flip-flops that he had, and then he saw another boy with a shiny leather shoes that he had on, he was wearing on it. Okay, but because in India, like when it comes to train, like there's always like packed with people. So eventually, this boy with this new pair of shoes, he dropped one side of his shoe, and then this poor boy, even though the moment that he held on that one side of the shoe, there might be a lot of thoughts going on in his mind. It could be like maybe he was like thinking and doubting whether to give this side of the shoe back to the boy that is on the train. But eventually he decided to run after the train and try to give back this side of the shoe to the boy. And then he tried to run after, but because the train is like going faster and faster, he couldn't catch up. And eventually the boy on the train removed the other side of his shoe, and he decided to give this pair of shoes to the boy who needs this pair of shoes more than he does. Okay, so this was a real life story of Mahatma Gandhi. The one on the train is actually Gandhi at a very young age. So with this story, we can tell that Gandhi, starting at a very young age, he learned how to share, he learned how to give, he learned how to care for others. So whenever I watch this, look at this short video, it's very inspiring. And also it reminds us that in our life, there are many things, as long as we can give and share, it is one good start for us in this practice of giving. And another story of during the Buddha's time is we all know who is King Ashoka. King Ashoka was the one that helped to spread Buddhism to Sri Lanka, to northeast of different countries outside of India. So King Ashoka, in one of his life when he was still a boy, okay, when the Buddha was still around, okay, he actually came across the Buddha while playing sandcastle. Okay, during that time he was still a boy, and then like doing like sandcastle, and then here comes the Buddha and Ananda going around for alms round. And out of like the purity mind of King Ashoka in that life, without doubt, he was thinking of like giving the best to the Buddha. So the best is what? A pile of dirt, a pile of sand that he and the rest of the kids were like playing. And then to him, that this is a beautiful castle that he had built. Even though it is made of sand, but in the boy's mind, he would like to offer the best to the Buddha when he got this opportunity. So without thinking, without doubting, he used both hands, scoop up the castle that he has, and then gently put it in the alms bowl of the Buddha. And you can see the monk that is standing next to the Buddha, that is actually Ananda. When he observed the whole thing, he was just thinking, and in his mind was like, oh no, that is a pile of dirt. How could a boy put dirt in the Buddha's alms bowl? The bowl will need to continue to fill up with food. How is the Buddha going to eat the bowl of sand? And then afterwards, Ananda eventually spoke out what was in his mind. And then the Buddha said that this little boy, his name was Jaya during that time, when he offered fully the sincerity within his mind. He gave with fully whatever that he has. This is the wealth. This is the most that he can give and share. So because of this act of giving and offering to the Buddha, when the Buddha enters into parinirvana, eventually this boy were actually born as a king in his following lives. And because of the previous action, he has cultivated the merit, and because of the karma that he has created in the past life, eventually he had built the connection with Buddhism. And today, even if you go to India, you will see different sites where you can find King Ashoka's pillar. You can find different Buddhist inscriptions that were erected by King Ashoka, like more than 1500 years ago, long time ago. It is because of this act of giving. It is because of the affinity that he has bonded with the Buddha during that time. So this reminds us of the importance of giving and sharing. So, and as part of the teachings continues in Anguttara Nikaya, is also part of the Nikaya Pitaka. Okay, the Buddha also shared on a sutra called Dana Sutra, or the Sutra of Giving, the teachings of giving, where the Buddha mentioned in terms of donation, in terms of giving, there are 6 main factors. Okay, of course, like the 3 factors is coming from the donors, the one that are the one who is giving. Okay, where as a donor, as a giver, before giving, of course, like we feel glad, we feel happy. And while we are doing the action of giving, our mind shouldn't be attached to the things that we're giving. So at that point of giving, our mind should be bright and clear. And after giving, in our mind, we should feel gratified. We feel grateful that someone is there to receive our gift, someone who is there to benefit from the gift that we give. Okay, so and the third factor, the 3 factors for as a recipient, as a receiver, is when we receive the things from others, we have to remind ourselves to have a mind free of passion. Okay, not attached to like the things that we like, or free of aversion, giving rise to like, oh, why did this person give me this? That sense of dislike, the sense of hatred. And of course, the most important thing is free of delusions. So when we look at these 3 factors of recipients, we can actually relate to the 3 poisons that the Buddha mentioned on the greed, hatred, and ignorance that we might give rise to every day, every single moment. So in this context, the Buddha is focusing on dana, he's focusing on giving. So I know like we are all still practicing. So we can always start with giving something small, giving something that we might not need. And then eventually, the more that we give, the more that we practice in giving. In our mind, we should always remind ourselves when we give, we try to give the things that is useful towards others. We try to give things that are, we feel that this is the best and we would like to share with others. And eventually, the more that we practice, our mind will not be attached to the giver, the recipient, and the gift that we give. So this is the main message from the Dana Sutra. So moving on, looking at, let me see the time. Okay, so moving on to look at another types of givings that I would like to share with everyone. My master, the Venerable Master Xing Yun, he is also the founder of our Buddhist order for Guang Shan, which means Buddha Light Mountain. Okay, so he renounced at the age of 12 years old. He is a Chinese and born and raised in traditional Buddhist training in the temples in China. Eventually, he went to Taiwan and established Fo Guangshan. And today, we have many temples around the world. It is because of the four givings that he always practiced throughout his whole life. And this year, he is already 95 years old. And in his mind, he's always thinking of giving, what to give to others. Take, for example, a few years ago, just less than 5 years ago, he had a brain surgery where the doctor removed a blood clot almost as big as our fist, but slightly smaller. And to many of us, we might be afraid that he might lose his memories, lost some capabilities in movements. But right after the surgery was successful. And when the moment that Venerable Master, he woke up, he opened up his eyes, the first word that he spoke, he said to the doctor, "Thank you." He felt so grateful for all the help that he had received throughout the whole process of the treatment. And the second sentence that he mentioned, he said, "Is there anything I can do to help you?" Okay. So even though he was still laying on the hospital bed, just finished a major brain surgery, in his mind, he's always thinking of others, what he can give, and also recognizing appreciation for the things that others have done for him. So out of the givings that he practiced throughout his whole life, there are four givings that he always reminded us to give. Is to give others confidence, give others joy, give others hope, give others convenience. Give others confidence is very similar with one of the three types of giving fearlessness. When we give others fearlessness, we give others confidence, we give others encouragement. And it acts in a way that remind ourselves to be aware of what we say to others. We always need to remind ourselves, we try to give others confidence in whatever that they are doing. Okay, and then not to remove the hope in one's mind. Always give others joy by smiling to others. And when it comes to hope, there's always a better future. And just like when the Buddha shared with us the teachings, the reality on impermanence. Impermanence is not something good or bad. It is just the truth of life. We recognize there are changes in life. When there's changes in life, there's always hope. There's always hope for changing to the better. It's just that right now we're still in the pandemic. Okay, but then we all know that there's always changes. There's always impermanence in this life. It's just a matter of time when how all this will be over, and then we will start anew again. So Venerable Master Xing Yun always reminded us to give others hope in whatever that we do, in whatever that we say, and whatever that we think in our mind. We always need to think of a way that is brightness, give others a hope in a way. And of course, the last one is to give others convenience. Okay, is again a way for us to reflect upon our action. When we put a thing in a certain place, are we giving others convenient, or we are obstructing the way of others? When we are saying a thing, a word, a phrase to others, Are we giving others convenience or making trouble to others? Okay, so the forgivings practiced by Venerable Master can also be reflected on myself when I was still second year in my studies in Chongqing University. We had many opportunity to interact with our master. Okay, and then there was one time that I was being asked to go to come here to the United States. So in my mind, because I was just like on the second year in my practice, in my mind, I don't feel confidence enough. In my mind, I always think of there's still so many things for me to learn from the Buddha. There's still so many things that I haven't read in the Buddhist text, in the Buddhist canon. I'm still not ready. But every time when Venerable Master had the opportunity to talk to me, he always gave me confidence. He always giving me joy, saying that, oh, people in the United States are very friendly. I've been to the United States for different states, many times. And people, no matter how bad your English is, Americans are very patient, and they're always being there to just listen, trying to understand what you're trying to say, what you're trying to convey. So in many ways, Venerable Master has been giving me a lot of encouragements and also confidence. And most importantly, he mentioned one phrase that I always remember throughout my whole practice. He said that I will know it when I try it. Okay, so it reflects upon like everything that we do throughout our whole life. There's nothing that we know. We don't know how to walk, we don't know how to eat since day one, but we learn throughout the whole life. We learn throughout the whole process. So Venerable Master always give me confidence and give me joy, saying that don't worry, when you do it, you will learn how to do it. Along the way, we learn. The more that we do, the more that we know how to do it. Or in another phrase that we know is practice makes perfect. Okay, so if it is not because of the encouragements from Venerable Master, I won't be here today sharing with what I know on the topic of giving. I won't be here renounced and practicing the Buddha's teachings in a way. So giving is one of the ways for us to form affinities to others. And this practice also helps us to cultivate universal loving kindness and compassion, as well as learning the perfection of giving in Bodhisattva's path. So that is the conclusion that I would like to conclude for my sharing today. So we have a little bit time for questions. If anything, that I hope that our affinity will continue on no matter where we are. As long as we have this affinity or connection, we can easily connect with each other via internet, via Zoom, or even if you had the opportunity to come and visit San Diego one day, please let me know. Thank you.